Yeah, I think it's, I've talked about that on the show before and talked about why that might be from a number of different angles. But I think one of the things around this risk-taking piece that we've been talking about, specifically for men that are tuning into this, is that there's a risk for taking more risk, right? And you know what that is, whether there's rejection or failure, but there's also a reward in it in the sense that it is going to help you develop a sense of resiliency psychologically, emotionally, relationally. I think how you are perceived and how you perceive yourself will inevitably shift. And I think for a lot of men, the reason why they lack a sense of self-worth or a sense of self-confidence is because there are certain things that they know they should be doing, certain risks they know they should be taking, that they don't take them, and then that erodes their sense of self-confidence, right? And then you take that and extrapolate it, not just one time, but hundreds of times over the course of a year or a couple months, and like that's going to tank how you perceive yourself. Yeah. And so there is this sort of correlation between your willingness to go and do the hard thing that you do not want to do and developing a more robust sense of self. And that gets rewarded by society. Relationally, it gets rewarded. People, I think we maybe underestimate how much what you and I are talking about plays into people's sense of trust in us. I know I can trust men in my life or my wife or, friends or whatever it is, based on their willingness to take a smart risk and do the hard thing that they know they should be doing. And it makes it harder to trust somebody if they are constantly collapsing in on those things. And it not only erodes their relationship with themselves, but it then erodes their relationship with you. And I think for a lot of men that are having marital issues specifically, right, or just relational issues with women, part of it comes down to that, is that a woman is sort of looking at what is your willingness to take this risk, to do this hard thing that you know you should do, and do you hold yourself to it or not? And if she sees you over and over and over and over and over again collapsing in on that, it's going to erode her sense of trust and safety with you, because she will feel like, oh man, do I have to do this for you? Are you going to step up to the plate and take this risk? Or is it that you are just collapsing under the weight of your own fears? And I think for a lot of women, that is a real sort of relational existential threat, that a man is going to collapse under the weight of his own fears. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's funny because that trust that you're talking about was something that we had to deal with in the U.S. military. When I'm flying, I was a navigator in a KC-135 Stratotanker, and I have to be able to trust that the co-pilot isn't going to shit himself and put the gear down. In fact, one of my jobs as the navigator is to make. We have a rule in the Air Force: the co-pilot is always trying to kill you. Even when he's not trying to kill you, he's trying to kill you. And so you're always like, the co-pilot, you need to put the gear down, to set the flaps at 30. We're always reminding this 22-year-old co-pilot, hey, this is, or 26, somewhere around there. Hey, this is what you need to be doing because he's going to kill you. But it's a certain level of trust that you need in these other members of the air crew to be willing to do their job, right? The boom operator has to go to the back and refuel the other airplanes. That level of trust that you have in people, here's the way I look at it. There's this ability. So we talk about different skill sets. Because I believe male utility is a really great way for men to increase their self-esteem is by accomplishing goals. I look up behavioral activation therapy, kind of a different variety. So from saying dialectical behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, behavioral activation therapy. The idea of men accomplishing goals in order to feel better about themselves is really important. And it seems to affect men more than women. I tend to find that when a woman is depressed, she can talk about her feelings and she can feel better about it by expressing herself. I find that guys can go to the weight room, hang out with their buddies, have a great time hanging out with their friends, going out playing football, and they feel better because they've done something, because they've accomplished something. And so I think there's a pretty massive difference when it comes to that. What was the original question you were asking me about? The risk? Trusting someone.
I was asking you. Yeah, trusting.
Yeah, the concept of trusting someone. So that's essentially what happens. You need to be able to trust people. The skill that I was meant to say was, I don't want to do something and I still do it anyway, right? I wake up in the morning and I don't want to go to, dude, I'm doing 75 hard. I don't want to do that outdoor workout. I don't want to drink a gallon of water. I don't want to read 10 pages from the book. I want to play video games. I want to stay up with my friends and talk. I want to watch TV. I don't want to read 10 pages from a book. I don't want to take a picture of myself without a shirt on. All the things that I certainly don't want to stick to this diet. All the things that happen in 75 hard. Doing things when you don't want to do them is a skill. And when I see people who have that skill, those are the people I trust the most. And that's, again, one thing we learned in the military. I do not want to get up at 0 dark 30 and go do PT. I don't want to do it. But I do it because I do it when I don't want to do it. You start to develop this callousness and this skill. David Goggins and Jocko Willink are really terrific at describing this attribute. Doing the thing when you don't want to do the thing is a skill in and of itself. It's one of the number one things I look for people who I hire is, are you willing to do the thing when you don't want to do it? And when you find that, that's somebody that you find you're able to trust, along with the ability to take risk. Along with the ability to take risk is also really, really important. And by the way, my company, we have like 30, 40 employees. And a lot of them, I tell them all the time, you guys can always criticize me. At the beginning of a lot of our coaches meetings, the first thing I ask is, have I done anything to make your lives harder? Have I screwed up anything? And I noticed the guys who are more willing to be critical of me, which is what I'm asking for in a respectful way. Obviously, I'm their boss. But when they do so, those are the guys I want to keep. The ones who are willing, because what are they doing? They're taking a risk. They're sitting there criticizing their boss. I asked you to criticize me, but you took the risk and you did it. Those are the guys I want to keep, because what's happened? They're doing the thing they don't want to do, and they're taking a calculated risk. And when I see that, I was like, okay, this is someone who I can probably work with, who's probably going to have a little bit more success in this field.
Yeah, I have spent a long time doing that within my business as well. And I mean, I just call it eating the humble pie, right? Like you got to get the feedback from the people who know more about you in their specific areas, that when you take their feedback, it can help you optimize. I want to end off on, we're going to take a hard right turn or hard left turn, doesn't really matter which way it is. Talking about, I put a post out on Instagram about, I don't know which woman it was, to be honest. I think it was Lily Phillips, whichever one slept with 1,000 men. And
so here's Lily did 100 guys in one day. And Bonnie said she did 1,000 in 12 hours. Now I do the math. You do the math there. It's 43 seconds per guy. So that was really, and the funny thing, after that happened, I did a reaction video to Lily, and then I met Lily at AVN. I was at the AVN Awards here in Vegas, and I bumped into her and I had a conversation with her about it. And when you meet her, she's very pretty and seems very normally adjusted. And then you realize what she does for a living. It's just crazy. But the thing is, what we were talking about before, who's guy number 700? Yeah. Who is that? One of the things I do talk about is the desperation of men. I hear you talk about this often, the desperation of men. What happened in your life for you to be number 859 of 1,000 men who had sex with Bonnie Blue? That's ultimately the question I have to. When people are, I'm getting way off topic here, but I believe there's 3 genders. There's high status men, there's women, and there's low status men. Because high status men and low status men, their experiences of life are so completely different. The idea, like when women complain about men, they're generally complaining about the high status men, the men who have like lots of options with women, but really they don't recognize the bottom third of men who have no options in short-term dating. And then you don't recognize how bad it is until you see OnlyFans made $6.6 billion in revenue last year. The average guy on dating apps gets 6 matches for every 1,000 right swipes. The average guy. Yeah, I believe the top 10% of men get 100 matches for it. They get 100 matches for every 1,000 right swipes. When you see that, and then somehow Bonnie Blue, she's pretty, she's not that pretty, for her to get 1,000 men to come and sleep with her, like the idea that I'm going to sit there and I'm waiting in a room. Just consider this, like just put yourself in these shoes. I'm waiting there. There's several guys in the room in front of me. I watch them open the doors, they go in, and then they come out later. And then eventually I'm going to go in the room. That's madness to me. Like, what has happened in your life for you to get to the point? I've met Bonnie. I haven't met Bonnie, but I've met Lily, and I have to tell you, they're doing what they want to do. You want to talk about psychological damage or trauma they've dealt with? I agree that's probably going on, but they've made life choices, and they're not actually the people I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is what happened that caused 1,000 men to stand in line to have sex with her. And here's the craziest part, Connor, is I will bet for probably 700, 800, or 900 of those 1,000 men, Bonnie Blue's the most attractive woman they've ever had sex with. Yeah, and that goes back to lack of risk taking, not doing the hard thing when you don't want to do it. So I don't have, and it's just madness to me that you would do something like this. I don't know if you saw the documentary after Lily Phillips had sex with 100 guys. They interview one of the guys, and he's outside and his hands are shaking after he had sex with her. He couldn't believe he did it. And this whole thing is just such madness. But I don't think that society in general understands this bottom third of men, their level of suffering they go through. They're 3 or 4 times more likely to take their own lives, far more likely to be the victims of violent crime or to conduct violent crime or to be the victims of some mental health crisis. And they're far more likely to lose their job, be zeroed out. There's all these things that this bottom third of men are going through that are very difficult. A man who's divorced in his 40s, depending on his financial situation, is 9 times more likely to take his life than the general population. When you see these statistics, it's really crazy. But the reason why we don't see that is because what we see are the top group of men that have a Lamborghini, the 6-pack, and a bunch of social media followers. When women complain about men who cheat, they're talking about those men at the top, and they're totally ignoring the mailman, the guy who gave you your Chick-fil-A. Like, these guys do not cheat. They're not cheating on you. They don't have any ability to cheat. They haven't had sex with a woman in 3 years. They have no. And so women, whenever I explain to them the number of men that go sexless without a year, the number of men that go a year without sex, women are just stunned by this, because women are like, oh, I get sex anytime I want. And it's just one of these stats that's really crazy for people to watch. But I don't know what you think about this. The commentary that it puts on all men, not all men, but a majority of men, that even 1,000 men would consider having sex with Bonnie Blue in the first place, is the part that is like, where are we now as a society? Those people are that conundrum they're going through is way more interesting to me than what Bonnie Blue's going through.